Hi, I'm Stefan, and this is a Grindelwald video about the movie of Grindelwald. But first, before I get into that, I want to cover a few things. First off, I didn't make this video to shame anybody for liking it, or to shame anybody who made it even. Like, I don't want to dunk on anybody. That's not my goal. I'm gonna poke fun here and there for the sake of fun, but my goal here is really just to understand what went wrong with the movie and explore what could have been done to make the movie more of what it could have been, what we wanted from it as Harry Potter fans, which, I am one. And my microphone is falling off. I'll just stick to my skin. All right, that seems good. I just won't move my shirt anymore. So yeah, with those caveats out of the way, let's just get into the video. Wait, actually, no, let's not get into the video, because before that, we need to talk about...
Alright, so I liked Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. It was a fun little movie, and overall did a good job of introducing 4 fairly likable characters who I felt could hold a franchise together fairly well. I just had one huge issue with the movie. After the big climax, the villain of the film, Gideon Graves, is revealed to have been Gellert Grindelwald all the whole time. Oh no! It's him, the bad guy, who's played by Johnny Depp. It's unclear how he was posing as Graves. You would assume it was a polyjuice potion, but as far as we know, there's no spell that instantly undoes it. But yeah, those are nitpicks. The real problem is with the reveal itself. I believe it was a complete mistake to have this reveal at the end of the film, and my reasons are threefold. Firstly, it reduces Grindelwald's menace. If Graves had been revealed to be an agent of Grindelwald, then it would have very capably established his ability to manipulate people in MCGONAGALL itself. A man with the power to install agents in positions of power in the government is frightening. A man who had to do his dirty work himself is less so, especially when he just gets captured at the end of the movie with like goofy little animals and stuff. He's not scary. Speaking of not scary, he looks like a goddamn idiot. And thirdly, saving the casting of this character for the next film where he actually serves a purpose would have allowed them to cast somebody, good for the role. Casting him before casting your actor for Dumbledore is also a huge mistake in my opinion, because it's incredibly important that all these actors have chemistry together. Auditioning the two at the same time, having them even act out some non-canon scenes together in the audition process would have really given them the opportunity to ensure they had the right people for the parts. But they didn't do that, so...
Will we die just a little?
What? That's all I have to say about Fantastic Beasts specifically. That's my big problem with it as a film. But that said, before I go back to being negative, let's list some good things in this movie. Newt, Jacob, Queenie, and Tina are all fun characters who I thought worked really well as an ensemble. The beasts are pretty fun to follow around in the film, and they were utilized well. I really like how the OBSCURUS lore subtly matches up with Ariana Dumbledore, Dumbledore's little sister, her stories of struggling with using magic and whatnot. That's really cool to me. Credence was a fairly sympathetic character, and they did a good job of establishing him. Colin Farrell did a great job as Graves. If they were going to reveal he was actually Grindelwald, I actually wouldn't have minded if Farrell ended up playing him permanently. I know that wouldn't have worked, but he's better at this than Johnny Depp. The music is pretty good, particularly Jacob's theme, which you can hear here. I'm gonna sing over the song here because of copyright strikes. And that one jazz song in the Wizard's Speakeasy. Though I wish the entire film had been jazz inspired with, that nice magical twist. It would have given the film a much more fun vibe, as the majority of the score is fairly standard. And now, with that out of the way, we proceed to... There are numerous things in The Crimes of Grindelwald that are kind of fun to complain about, but aren't actually important problems that affect the movie's actual quality. So I will have a section right here dedicated to nitpicky problems that don't matter, distinct from actual critique. McGonagall. So she's a teacher when Newt is a kid. That makes her way older than she's supposed to be. And she's teaching Transfiguration already, which is leads into the next problem. Dumbledore is teaching Defense Against the Dark Arts. Dumbledore was never established in the books or the movies as a teacher of Defense Against the Dark Arts, ever. He was a Transfiguration teacher. So, what's going on? Well, why? Next nitpick, wizard clothes. They don't wear wizard clothes, they wear people clothes. This skull bong thing is stupid, but I kinda like it. Grindelwald vapes, guys.
Wow.
One second, let me see if this thing has an actual name. Oh, and you know, there's also just the big thing, which it hasn't been fully, fleshed out yet, so I'm not gonna consider this real critique, but big spoilers. Here's your one warning of the big reveal at the end of the film that I'm going to talk about and just complain about real quick. So Credence is a Dumbledore, which, how? Grindelwald specifically refers to Credence as Dumbledore's brother, and maybe that he was just like saying that, like, not literally, but like, pretty sure Dumbledore's dad died way before this could ever be possible, given Credence's very young age. Like, and Aberforth probably did not birth this child. There was a woman with Credence when you take it from like the whole Lestrange thing, and I don't know. I don't know how this is even possible in the canon. It's bad. It's really bad. Don't let this be Dumbledore's kid. J.K. Rowling, this better not be Dumbledore's kid. I swear to fucking God. Okay, so I think I got it out of my system. Now I'm gonna talk about the actual problems in the movie. Let us begin. Alrighty, so I'm gonna do what I've done in other videos, which is I'm gonna go through the film chronologically, but don't worry too much. I'm not gonna dwell on much of it. I'm gonna slow down when I hit a point where I actually have something to say. So let's jump right in. The film opens with a jailbreak. Grindelwald has turned one of the MACUSA agents over to his side, and the agent helps him with this jailbreak by posing as Grindelwald, while the real Grindelwald defeats everyone else and kills an animal that loves him just because he's evil, I guess.
So needy.
Cool. Anyway, I like the concept of a jailbreak. It's a good opening action beat, and his ability to manipulate other people is firmly established in this scene. Overall, it's good stuff. My only issue is with the blatant displays of cruelty, but I'll get into why later. Yes, there they were. His crimes, his disgusting crimes. Did you see them? I did. And then I told you with the title. Haha. Is that J.K. Rowling's voice? I don't even know. Next we see Newt in the Ministry of Magic, and we meet his brother Theseus and Leta Lestrange, Theseus's fiancée and Newt's old crush. Also, a side note, they keep doing shots here. They look like they're in first person because of huge close-ups and characters looking directly into the camera, and I don't know why this is happening. There's definitely logic to this. Like, David Yates is a good enough director to make these decisions intentionally. I don't understand the cinematography decisions in the scene. I don't know why it's here. I don't know what the purpose is. Even after rewatching the film, yeah, this is why. Why? Newt has a meeting with ministry folks who tell him that they're gonna give him a passport if he joins the ministry and helps them track down Credence, who appears to still be alive after the events of the first film. I don't really have a problem with this because I actually did notice that there's this little wisp of obscurial stuff that got away at the end of the previous movie. That said, I only noticed when I watched it like a couple days before I watched The Crimes of Grindelwald. So I get why most people were like, what? Why the hell is he alive? How the hell is he alive? However, this offer comes with a caveat that if he finds Credence, the ministry is gonna, kill him. So Newt says no. He's not really into that idea. Until Dumbledore shows up and talks Newt into tracking Credence down for him instead. Which is to say, illegally. Because Dumbledore's most consistent characterization in both the movies and the books is him being a manipulative asshole. To be fair, however, Dumbledore doesn't seem to want to kill Credence. That puts him above the Ministry of Magic at the moment. Also, Grindelwald has a scene where he kills muggles in order to have their house, and then there's a baby there, and then he has the baby killed, because he's evil, I guess. I guess that's the reason. He's just so evil. Good to know that the bad guy's evil. Newt goes home and tends to magical animals until Queenie and Jacob show up at his door, which is kind of weird because last time Newt saw him, Jacob was obliviated. Well, it turns out Jacob just sort of remembered again, which, whatever. Something's still off, though. It turns out Queenie has drugged him with a love potion. Yeah, she just full on drugged him in order to marry him against his will. Which is, oh boy. Newt undoes that, and Jacob's pretty upset that Queenie brainwashed him. It turns out he has refused to be in a relationship with her because he doesn't want her to be a fugitive, but she, however, wants to go for it anyway. At some point, Jacob apparently ends up thinking in his own brain that she's crazy, which Queenie notices, being, you know, a legitimate and all. Now, seeing as she just violated his mind and then insulted him by calling him a coward, it'd be pretty reasonable for that thought to be going through his head, in my opinion, though it would still be bad to say it. But Queenie is obviously pretty emotional about all this, and she leaves to go find Tina in France, which is also where Credence is, as it turns out. Newt decides to bring Jacob along with him on a secret mission to find Tina and Credence, seeing as he's there anyway and wants to talk to Queenie again. So, for the record, as of this moment, we have 3 stories currently ongoing. 1, Grindelwald doing his nasty crimes. 2, Newt and Jacob looking for Credence and Tina. 3, Queenie. And now we had a 4th as we cut to Credence in some sort of wizard carnival, which is also where we meet Nagini, which I guess we should talk about that. In this film, we learned that Nagini is actually a human woman with a blood curse that means she will eventually turn into a snake forever, like Tobias in Animorphs. Now, I don't necessarily hate this idea, but this film does nothing with the concept and nothing with Nagini as a character. And I do mean literally nothing. Nagini serves 0 purpose in this story. She adds nothing to the plot and also adds nothing in terms of compelling character moments. Like, you could remove her from the story and absolutely nothing would change. I don't know why she's here. Also, real quick side note, while I'm editing, all those clips you just saw of her standing around, besides her introduction, those encompass every single sequence she's in. And you know what? On a whim, nothing in the script here. I'm just gonna do this during editing. I'm gonna go through and see how many lines she actually has.
Credence, c'est votre fils, madame. Credence, they're purebloods. They kill the likes of us for sport. He knows what you were born, not who you are.
Anyway, Credence fucks some shit up and escapes the carnival with Nagini. Tina, who was also there, asks what he was doing there, and the carnival guy says he was looking for his mother. And also, she talks to some guy about Credence's past, and like, oh, he might be a Lestrange, a secret Lestrange, and that's important for some reason. And who gives a shit? This brings us up to 5 concurrent plot lines now, with Credence and Tina each having their own distinct threads. Grindelwald smokes from his skull bong and drones on about Credence, and then talks to a lackey who he questions the allegiance of. Meanwhile, Newt and Jacob illegally go to France via Portkey and then find some clues about where Tina went. A fun little scene. Meanwhile, Queenie goes to the French Ministry of Magic and gets rebuffed. Then gets sad, then thoughts get really loud for her, so she yells at them, and then a Grindelwald agent takes her somewhere while comforting her. Next, Credence looks like he finds his mother, but then he doesn't because she was his nanny. Then a guy working for the ministry but is actually working for Grindelwald kills the nanny before she can give him answers, and then Credence goes Super Saiyan. Newt and Jacob track down the mysterious guy who talked to Tina, then find out he's doing bad stuff and imprisoned her, and they get captured along with her. So, you know, now we've consolidated Tina and Newt's stories, bringing the number of stories down to 4. But unfortunately, we're about to add more, so that doesn't even matter. But first, the bad man passes out, and Newt and the others break out of their cage, but then they catch a fantastic beast in a scene for some reason. Then Theseus and Lita show up with a bunch of ministry people to question Dumbledore at Hogwarts, and they do. And Dumbledore does some low-key queer baiting.
You and Grindelwald were as close as brothers.
Oh, we were closer than brothers.
And then there's suddenly a long flashback scene of Newt and Lita doing stuff. The movie suddenly thinks Lita is a main character in the film, even though we're about halfway through the movie, and this is the first time we've seen her since the movie started. So, yeah. Theseus and Lita become their own story thread here, so now we're back up to 5. Great. We come back to Queenie now, who meets Grindelwald face to face, which brings me, finally, to one of the biggest problems in this film. Queenie is one of the standout characters from the first Fantastic Beasts film. Endlessly likable, seemingly ditzy, but actually extremely self-aware, and extremely empathetic and emotional. And J.K. Rowling made an extremely brave choice with her in the sequel. Have her join the bad guys. Queenie ends up falling for Grindelwald's rhetoric and ends up becoming radicalized. Now, some people may vehemently disagree with me about this, but I think this story has a lot of promise. Making arguably the member of the group with the biggest heart fall for Grindelwald makes a very good point. Anybody can fall for fascist rhetoric, even with the best of intentions. Queenie wants to live in a world where she and Jacob can marry without facing discrimination, and she's right to want that. Grindelwald promises her a world where that's possible, which is, of course, something she desperately wants. In an emotional state where she feels isolated and alone, someone who presents themselves as a friend could be extremely convincing. If Queenie weren't firmly established as a person who can read minds. Queenie should be able to read Grindelwald's mind and know he's manipulating her. As an audience member, it's hard to not think that. It isn't a tiny nitpick, this is an important aspect of her character. It informs damn near every aspect of her personality. They draw attention to it in the previous scene with her. If she can't read his mind, the film needs to provide a reason why. And it would be so easy to.
Enchanté.
A, maybe he knows occlumency. It's extremely likely that a wizard as powerful as Grindelwald would have this skill, especially one whose private thoughts are likely very important to keep hidden. B, maybe his thoughts aren't in English. Grindelwald's not British. He went to Durmstrang and is therefore from Eastern Europe somewhere, like probably Austria. His thoughts are likely not in English at all. And Queenie only speaks the one language, presumably, so her not understanding his thoughts would make complete sense in that respect too. If either of these explanations had been brought up in the film, that would be fine. But unfortunately they didn't, and this part needs to be explained to the audience. And unfortunately, there's only this one singular scene that exists to show us how Queenie gets radicalized. Nowhere near enough screen time is given to her, and as a result, her heel turn at the end doesn't feel earned at all. And that really bums me out because that story has so much potential. But this bad start unfortunately neuters it forever. People will never buy it now. And speaking of Grindelwald, let's get to what is arguably the film's biggest problem, period. Johnny Depp's performance as Grindelwald is terrible. Going by the Queenie plotline, the way the script handles him, and the descriptions of his influence in the books, Grindelwald is meant to be a charming and utterly convincing figure. He's also an evil fascist, yeah, but one who convinced people through the power of his words alone. That is a great concept for a villain. Unfortunately, Johnny Depp, at least at this juncture, is not capable of bringing that level of nuance to this character. And as a result, we end up getting a concept for a villain that is utterly wasted in this film. That said, a lot of the writing isn't doing this character any favors either. In the books, Dumbledore revealed to Harry that Grindelwald eventually regretted what he did, but the movie gives us a man completely lacking in any empathy for other living things. I mean, first off,
So needy.
he kills an animal that he's gotten to love him just because he can? I mean, already he's been reduced to a pretty boring guy who's evil for the sake of it. Cause, like, this isn't even practical. Having a fiercely loyal servant, be they person or animal, should be useful to him. So this exists simply to show him being cruel, which is entirely unnecessary. The next scene we see him in involves his servants going in and killing muggles in order to give themselves a hideout. Now, we cut to shots here where it seems like he maybe finds this distasteful. He won't even do it himself, so maybe you can do something with that. But no, next we see him needlessly have a baby killed, and all that potential nuance is just thrown out the window. Oh, there it goes, right out the window. Any shred of potential nuance is just gone. And so when Queenie ends up being swayed by him later, as an audience member, you can only see him as an evil monster. So mind reading aside, she kind of looks like an idiot for being fooled. They didn't even try to play him up as being manipulative. His scene with her is extremely understated. The film does basically nothing to establish his ability to be charming and manipulative aside from showing the aftermath of him doing it. If you really wanted to have your cake and eat it too in this scenario, you could tease the audience into believing he has a conscience. Do small things to make it seem like he's questioning what he's doing. All leading up to the scene where he speaks to his followers about a world where muggles and wizards get to actually live together. Convince the audience that he believes this. And then, when all of his supporters can no longer see him, have him do something evil that contradicts all of it. In this scenario, structurally, you've told a story where the audience was tricked along with the characters. And when you do that, you've managed to show the audience firsthand how he manipulates people. I mean, hey, viewer watching, he manipulated you see? That can help make them understand how he could have tricked the characters we're supposed to empathize with. As it is now, they just look gullible and stupid. It's a waste of a potentially good story and villain. Alright, let's get through the rest of the movie now. Basically, hijinks ensues, Nicholas Flamel is in the movie for no reason, a lame rom-com subplot with Newt and Tina is taken care of, they run into Lolita, everybody for whatever reason ends up in the exact same graveyard, and then we get a big, long, drawn-out exposition scene. Technically two. exposition scenes when you think about it. First, the bad guy here is revealed to be Lita's long-lost brother, but he's not a Lestrange. And the reasons why would require a content warning, so I'll just skip over the details. Basically, Lita and the guy share a mom, and the guy believes that Lita and Credence share a dad, and that Credence's real name is Corvus Lestrange. The guy wants to kill Corvus out of revenge for what happened to his and Lita's mom. However, Lita reveals that Corvus is dead because she killed him. Whoa! She then proceeds to tell the story of how her brother wouldn't stop crying, so she put her brother in another quieter baby's crib while they were on a boat headed towards America, with every intention of getting him back later. Unfortunately, the boat sank, and while the other baby and Lita got out safely, Corvus ended up drowning, which is why in a previous scene, when Lita had a boggart like show up, it looked like this creepy drifting cloth, and that's because that's the swaddle of her baby brother as he drowns. Which I'll give the movie this credit. It's haunting imagery. By the way, that's 2 dead babies in this movie, if we're counting the dead babies. The baby Lita switched Corvus with was Credence, which means Corvus died and Credence still doesn't know who he is. Which you know, that means that there was literally no reason for the audience to hear any of this because it has done nothing to serve the story. All it did was inform Lita's character, despite the fact that she's barely even in this movie. In a book, this stuff could have been very good and engaging. However, due to the way it's been presented here, when I was watching the film, I simply didn't care about it. I can see pieces of a very good mystery here. J.K. Rowling is nothing if not a writer who is spectacular at creating compelling mystery, but she simply did not have the room to explore it adequately. As a result, it ends up being a plot that just didn't belong in the film at all. And we're going into the third act now. Jacob is suddenly in the scene, inexplicably, and everybody heads down to find out that they're at a Grindelwald rally. Jacob meets up with Queenie again, and everyone listens to Grindelwald talk, including Theseus, who has shown up with ministry people to sort of like oversee the event and see if the Grindelwald people get violent. Grindelwald talks for a bit about wanting a nice, happy world. He vapes out visions of World War II and says he wants to prevent it. And then Grindelwald makes the ministry goons feel unsafe by having his supporters intimidate them. One of the ministry guys kills a Grindelwald supporter, and Grindelwald uses that to fuel the idea that his people are being suppressed despite being completely non-violent, which is a pretty good depiction of government overreach and fascist uprisings at times going hand in hand, as fascists prey on very real problems that people contend with. And from here, the movie goes crazy. Grindelwald makes a big magic fire circle, and it'll kill people who don't want to work with him, but it'll leave alive people who are on his side, basically. Queenie does her heel turn in a scene that should have been more emotionally resonant than it was.
Walk with me.
No!
Walk with me!
You're crazy.
I mean, that interaction should have been great, but instead it's like, oh, I mean, I see what you were doing there, but it didn't quite work. Credence also joins Grindelwald. Both character leaves, and that all that's left is Lita. The movie acts like we think she'll join him when I'm pretty sure most people know she won't, and then after a poorly executed fake out, she dies. Which is why the movie shoved in backstory for her. J.K. Rowling kills off her character prematurely, and so she tried to compensate with flashbacks and a big pointless mystery, but like, it didn't work. And from there, Grindelwald turns into Jack Sparrow for a split second.
I hate Paris.
And then tries to kill Paris with a big fire dragon despite preaching
It is not we who are violent.
only a few minutes earlier, because we need an action scene, I guess, even though this action scene is not exciting at all. Yeah, like the dragon's quickly taken care of in a really underwhelming sequence. Newt and Theseus have a trite makeup scene, and then the movie ends with Newt showing Dumbledore that he got a blood oath thing for him so that he can fight Grindelwald now. And then Credence finds out that he's apparently a Dumbledore and gets a wand. End of movie. That, I guess that is a third act. J.K. Rowling wrote this and the first Fantastic Beasts film all on her own. Reportedly, she had literal giant stacks of notes, and I have zero doubt that she worked very hard on this story. I really would have preferred it to be a book. The thing is, this film is filled with numerous elements and ideas that I think are good. There's so much here worth preserving and salvaging, so much that could work if it had been handled differently. The issue, from my perspective, is that J.K. Rowling's strengths lie in writing novels. Screenwriting is simply a different beast entirely, and at the very least, I think she needs a writing partner who's willing to challenge her ideas and help her to create a more cohesive screenplay. Because what this movie needed was focus. Focus on a thematic center for the story, including only the plot lines that served this theme and worked toward creating an emotional climax that felt earned, because as it is now, the sheer volume of ideas that coexist in this film end up diluting the whole thing. Number 1. Hire a different actor as Grindelwald. There's lots of people who could have done this role a lot more justice, and, you know, just sort of going with the theme of somebody from, like, Eastern Europe, like you could go with Mads Mikkelsen. He's my personal favorite for the role. Nikolaj Coster-Waldau, he's Jaime on Game of Thrones, and he could totally work. You could get one of the many Skarsgårds, whatever their fucking names are, like the young ones. Not Skellen. You can get any of those guys, I guess. Number 2, don't make Grindelwald so cartoonishly evil. Play up Grindelwald's ideals as genuine. Make him genuinely believe he wants to subjugate Muggles for their own good, to save them from themselves. That gives us a far more interesting character. And from Queenie's perspective, that's exactly what she was trying to do with Jacob. Control him in order to give him what he actually wants. She thinks she knows better than him. Someone else with similar goals and a similar idea of themselves and their ability to make decisions for other people could make a lot of sense to her. You could have like some thematic cohesion there. And it would also explain why Queenie wouldn't see him as a liar during his scenes with her, because he wouldn't be lying. In this scenario, he doesn't kill people just for the sake of it, only when he believes it's necessary for his cause. Number 3, cut the Lestrange plot entirely. It simply does not add enough to the core story. You can still have Credence trying to find out who he is. The whole conspiracy angle just needed to be drastically simplified. Number 4, make Leda and Theseus matter. There needed to be far more opportunities for Newt and Theseus to actually interact throughout the film. Play up Newt squabbling with his brother, show them having fundamental disagreements with how to deal with problems. Have Leda constantly playing the referee, keeping them from figuratively clawing each other's eyes out. Give them a real relationship we see throughout the film. And the best way to do that, I think, would be for Theseus and Leda to track Newt down when he leaves the country illegally, and then use that to strong-arm him into helping their search for Credence. Since they had the same goal anyway, that puts them all in the same story so they can interact together, and you get a sort of like buddy cop feel throughout the entire movie, which can be character building as well as fun. Number 5, have Tina help Credence instead of Nagini. Consolidating Tina's story with Credence's, having her join Credence in his search to find his mother, would make a lot of sense and give us a lot more opportunities to see some real character development for both characters. They had an implied big sister little brother relationship in Fantastic Beasts, and J.K. Rowling could have made good on that here. This would also, as a result, remove Nagini from the film, which is fine because she does nothing for this movie. There's nothing saying she couldn't be a character later in the series if you have a place for her, but she's dead weight in this particular film. Number 6, flesh out Queenie's story. With multiple storylines cut down and streamlined, that gives you a lot more time to spend with Queenie and Grindelwald having scenes together, watching him slowly manipulate her over the course of the film instead of in one scene where he monologues at her. It also gives you an opportunity to flesh out Grindelwald as a character too. In this case, Queenie's story actually feels earned in the end. And with all these stories consolidated, you basically end up with 3 main threads. 1, Newt, Jacob, Theseus, and Leda searching for Credence. 2, Tina and Credence, looking for his mother and him trying to figure out who she is and Tina trying to help him. And then 3, Queenie and Grindelwald, with Queenie slowly being brought over to his side over the course of the film. Now, I said all this like as ways to fix it, and none of that is to make any claim that I am a better writer than J.K. Rowling. I'm not. It's much easier to editorialize and play script doctor in retrospect than create a story from scratch. This video has just been my way of lamenting what I feel is an unfortunate loss as a Harry Potter fan. I don't want to write this movie off as pure crap because I don't think it's that cut and dry. It's a story with promise that unfortunately fell short in my mind, and I just wanted to show people what I see when I watch this film. A movie that could have been great.
And that was my Crimes of Grindelwald video. But before I leave, I'm gonna tell you now about my Patreon that I have reopened. Cause yeah, I used to have a Patreon. I got rid of it because I got a job, which I'm at right now. I'm not complaining, I like my job. But it does keep me away from doing these videos as much because I'm focusing on that rather than focusing on my YouTube channel. So yeah, I have a Patreon. It only charges on a per video basis, not monthly, because I don't think I can do it monthly. Like if I make something that's under 10 minutes, I'm not gonna charge anybody for that, but an over 10 minutes video that like actually has some substantial meat to it, that's the kind of stuff I charge for. And of course, there are Patreon rewards. You can go to the page if you want to read about that. I just wanted to tell you about the Patreon, which I've done. So I guess I'm done.